All right, so the next story that I want to move on to here is another Chinese story. Not exactly a myth in this case. It's based on a historical abduction of Lady Weni during the Han Dynasty. So this is about 145 AD, something like that. And she is abducted by Xiongnu barbarians. They come in over the mountains from the north, and they are nomads. And so they are used to put this in the terms of Deleuze and Guattari, they are used to the smooth space of the steppe. And they encounter the city as striated space that gets in the way of their creation of the smooth space of the steppe. And so they've come to this city to rob it and pillage it, and then they abduct this woman and they take her out to the nomad world, and she spends most of the rest of her life living out there. So this is an actual case that happened, and apparently the woman... we have a poet named Lu Shang, I believe, who centuries later has written poetry based on her letters. So this is his poetry. And then centuries after that, about the 14th century, we get the paintings. So this has been like a 1,000-year-long construction of this story in this form. So let's go ahead and start. Now, of course, I would never just recount a merely historical story, because I think that this story is also, like Goethe's fairy tale and like the Lady Whitesnake fairy tale, although this is not a fairy tale, it does capture the idea of the soul's incarnation into the physical world and the ordeals that it's put to, and then its eventual reunification with the spirit world. So that, with that paradigm in case, think of the city as the spirit world. This is Lady Weni. This is her soul in the spirit world, where she is at home, where she wants to be, and where she gets homesick for it when she's out on the plane. And then when she is kidnapped and taken out on the plane, that is the soul out on the physical plane, and it becomes homesick for the other world, the world that it has come from. So it is also a spiritual allegory. And I'm pretty certain that the Chinese very well knew that, although the commentators of this book don't seem to be aware of it, but that's okay. And so the first poem, The Abduction of Lady Weni. The Han house is declining. The barbarians of the four directions have become unfriendly. They raise arms, and wars are incessant. Pity my father and mother who bore and reared me. For witnessing partings and turmoil, this is the moment. At gauze windows, looking into mirrors, I had not experienced the world. I thought that the beaded curtains could shelter me. One day the barbarian cavalry entered China. Suddenly, everywhere we met nomads. My unfortunate life is now at sword's point. Alas, a helpless woman carried away into the alien's dust. And so now the commentator of the book has this little commentary over here where he says, beneath the invaders' banners loom the frightening forms of armored men and horses. Blood has been spilled. And then, so these are the paintings illustrating what he's talking about here. Blood has been spilled. Defenseless people of the city hurry past a body. In a moment there will be another casualty. A servant scrambling over a wall is about to receive an arrow. Another fleeing along a loggia will not escape his pursuer. At the entrance to Zai Yung's compound, a captain sits at ease while loot from within is added to the pile before him. In the courtyard, clad in his gilded armor, the band's chief examines the prize being presented to him, the daughter of the house. A street sign in the fourth of the Boston paintings. This is the Boston Met that inherited this collection. The Boston paintings identifies this scene as Ying Chang, or Chen Lu. The compound with its spacious courtyards and open loggias is a good example of an elegant early southern Song residence in the Chang'an area. The nomad, actually Kai Tian, a historical character. Soldiers have shaved heads with queues hanging at the sides. The officers wear soft caps. The horses are clad in armor of leather and iron. In the 1130s, the southern Song army was threatened by the Kuaizu Ma of the Qin general Wu Chu, a cavalry force with these armored horses chained together in threes. It is said that the Song general Yue Fei destroyed such a military machine by ordering foot soldiers with sickles to go into the charging force and chop down the horses' unprotected legs. These are the same barbarians, by the way, that the Great Wall of China was built to keep out in the time of the Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi in about 220 BC. That's when the wall, it was either completed, because there was evidence that it wasn't entirely built during his reign, but it was completed during his reign, specifically to keep these barbarians out. And the Qin dynasty is the one right before the Han dynasty, so it didn't last very long. The wall was not all that effective, apparently. 2. Departure from China. I was taken on horseback to the ends of the earth. Tiring of life, I sought death, but death would not come. The barbarians stink so. How can they be considered human? Their pleasures and angers are like the jackals and the wolves. How unbearable. We travel to the end of Chenshan, and during all the frost and sleet, the customs are rude, the land is desolate, we are near the Nomad's territories. An overcast sky stretches beyond 10,000 miles. Not a single bird is in sight. The cold sands are boundless. One can no longer tell the south from the north. So his commentary on the paintings are, let's see. Okay, so here's the paintings. So they're now out on the Nomad steppe. In other words, on the plane of physical incarnation now. Lady Weni has incarnated. Wearing an ermine-trimmed hat and riding a white-footed horse with a blaze, the Nomad leader watches his captive. Weni has been given a clapped horse, or a dappled horse, rather, with snow leopard saddle skin, and she wears a traveling hat with veil. The tribal banners show the cardinal directions, a symbolism borrowed from China: red south, green east, white west, black north, yellow center. This goes all the way over into the Native American world, where you find colors assigned to the 4 directions in the Native American world. And that's not an accident, because there are lots of traffic across the Pacific that has gone on. There are concrete connections between Chinese Shang dynasty in about 1200 BC with the Olmec. And American anthropologists are loath to admit this, because they want to be proud that they take it as an insult that Native Americans could not have created their own civilization. Of course they did, but under the influence of the Chinese. There's no question about that. Flute music is heard above the beating of hooves. The chieftain's remount, its saddle decorated with plumes, follows the banners. The chieftain's falconer rides with a bird on his gloved arm. Through the trees one glimpses horses laden with baggage and plunder. The armor no longer needed has been packed away, but the tails of the ponies are still knotted short, campaign style. Sparse vegetation, growing mostly on one side of the hills, tells us we are far north of the land Weni knew as home. The round foliage dots derive from the tradition of the great northern Sung landscapist Fan Quan, about 1,000. A snowscape by Lang Kai, about 1,200, showing 2 nomad horsemen at the foot of a mountain, also has the Fan Quan-inspired foliage dots. It is possible that Lang Kai, who in his earlier career was an academy painter, derived his inspiration from a representation of the Weni story. A hat like Weni's is worn by a woman in Chao Kan's late 10th century painting, Early Snow on the River. Okay. And here they are. The campaign. The encampment in the desert. 3. I am like a prisoner in bonds. And that's a common metaphor for the soul. That goes all the way back to the Gnostic idea and the Orphic idea. Sema, the body, is a tomb of the soul. It's a soul cage. I am like a prisoner in bonds. I have 10,000 anxieties, but no one to confide them to. They can make me work, or they can cut my hair. They can eat my flesh, and they can drink my blood. Knowing this is death, I would suffer anything willingly, but to make me his wife is worse than killing me. Alas, how a pretty face has made me suffer. How I resent it that I am weak and soft like water. According to the history of Lao, about 1345, the Lao emperors ruling northern China dressed in Chinese style, while their empresses wore Khitan costumes. Here the Nomad chief wears the informal garb of a Chinese ruler, while Weni is dressed like a Khitan princess, wearing a high, brimless black gauze hat with 2 long flaps hanging at the sides. Screens of felt mounted on canes protect the chieftain's quarters from the winds blowing off the thinly wooded hills. The handsome scissor-latticed yurt is floored with matting and a pile rug. A canopy shelters the couple at their meal, which is being served by both men and women. Gold dishes are on the 2 low tables placed end to end. A tall red lacquered table, conspicuously elegant in this setting, is a Chinese import. Beside the table are stoneware jars of Lao type. Weni, sitting wooden-faced, is obviously not impressed with the tribe's efforts to please her, nor with her consort's gentle attentiveness. 4. Longing for home. Mountains and streams a long way away. Who can remember them? And this is the soul being homesick for the other world that it is incarnated from. Where at the sky's edge is my native land? Since my terrifying experience, my energy has faded. Gradually, wind and frost have ravaged my countenance. In the night, I dream of returning to and fro. In my half-dreaming state, is it possible that some messages may be transmitted? In the vast barbarian sky, my cries are not answered, yet the bright moon is my Han moon, which should recognize me. Auburn leaves declare the passing of another year. Wen Qi, her back turned upon the yurts and saddles of the camp, gazes despondently at the moon across the barren landscape. Not everything of her past is lost, for a girl attendant carries her qin, the classic Chinese stringed instrument, in its protective wrapping. The painter here sets the mode for the related compositions of the 6th, 9th, and 11th scenes. In the poems for these scenes, the poet continues to describe Wen Qi's bereavement and loneliness. Each time the painter selects a concrete image for his illustration: the moon, the constellation of the Dipper, horsemen shooting the messenger birds, migrating geese as direction pointers. With the slopes and campsites pushed to the right side, the viewer's attention is directed to the chosen theme in the upper left corner of the picture. And here's the yurt, and they built a little screen around it to keep out the elements. Encampment by a stream. 5. I sleep by water and sit on grass. The wind that blows from China tears my clothing to pieces. I clean my hair with mutton fat, but it is seldom combed. The collar of my lambskin robe is buttoned on the left. The fox lapels and badger sleeves are rank-smelling. By day I wear these clothes. By night I sleep in them. The felt screens are constantly being moved since there is no fixed abode. How long my days and nights are, they never seem to pass. The prince and his unhappy wife are again at table. In the paintings here, a ewer of wine in its warming bowl is ready on the lacquered serving table. At the left, behind a screen, fruit is being prepared. Unleavened bread is being made, and joints of mutton boil in one of the iron cauldrons. To many Chinese, mutton has a most unpleasant odor, and one may imagine the cooking fires being fueled in part by mutton fat or animal dung. Grease and smells are among Wen Qi's chief complaints. In detail after detail, the artist evinces his knowledge of the nomads. The man walking from the cooking area shows us how his horse-riding people managed its long robes on less than formal occasions. The excellent traction wheels of the baggage carts show us their method of construction. The tribe's furled banners and stacked drums are described in the history of Lao as emblems of the Khitan ruler. The drawing of the grass and willows recalls the work of Chao Tai Nien and Li Tang. It is also close to the drawing in some other mid-12th century academy landscapes that followed in Li Tang's tradition. The constellation of the Dipper. 6. I resent it that spring is so short here. In the nomad land there are few flowers or willows. Who knows if heaven and earth have not been turned upside down? Here we see the Great Dipper in the south. Since our names, sounds, and signals are wholly different, all day and all year I keep my mouth closed. Yes and no, and accepting and giving things away, all depend on finger gestures. For expressing our feelings, speech has become less useful than the hand. So while the poem describes the sufferings of one bereft of directional sense in spoken communication, the painter again, as in the 4th scene, seizes on concrete imagery. Here the prince joins Wen Qi and happily shares in her viewing of the constellation with his hand rather than with speech. And there they are over here looking up at the constellation of the Big Dipper. 7. Concert on the steppe. Their men and women both carry bows and arrows. Their border ponies and native sheep lie about in frost and sleet. How can there be freedom for me to take a single step in any direction? Neither living stealthily nor begging for an early death can be my true wish. I listened to the Pai Li of Chuzhu in sadness. The pipa of Sui Ye makes mournful sounds in the deep of the night. Through the cloudless night, the moon rises high in the sky. Oh, but I must see my hometown again. Disdained though they were by the Chinese, the nomads did not lack arts of their own. Here, when she names 2 of the instruments she hears, the Pai Li, a horn, and the lute-like pipa, the latter played by the musicians seated beside the empty cushion, and mentions their supposed places of origin in Central Asia. Historically, the pipa attained favor in China during the Tang period, the time of the poems, long after Wen Qi's day. While the musicians perform, a platter of mutton arrives from the cooking area. The wine steward holds a beautiful ewer of Lao type. The prince is, as usual, vigorous and animated, but Wen Qi again looks downcast. And here she is over here looking very downcast with the leader over here next to her. 8. Dawn. I remember the past, when I was an attractive but spoiled child at home. From afar was obtained a rare bird, which I tamed. Now lost and abandoned, I think of my old home. And of course the bird is a symbol for the soul. She has lost that in this material incarnation. I regret that I did not release my bird to the forest. The north wind whistles and the cold sun sets. The lonely river of stars hangs above until dawn comes again in the nomad sky. Day and night I think of returning, but I cannot return. My sorrowful heart, I think, must be like that bird in its cage. That's the image of the soul cage, the bird inside the cage. The body, the soul inside the cage of the body. Developing the imagery of the caged bird, the painter conceals Wen Qi in a tightly closed tent guarded by a female attendant. Dawn breaks, tribesmen play reveille on drums and horns. Others come from their tents and prepare their horses. The rousing sound of the hura chow, the painted horn, made of bamboo and skin and played at dawn and dusk, echoes that of the Pai Li in the seventh poem, all part of the alien environment that grates upon the sensibilities of the Chinese lady. 9. Writing home. In the past, when Su Wu was questioned by the Khan, it is said that the migrating geese knew how to carry a message. Imitating Su Wu, I pricked blood to write a letter. In this letter I write 1,000 and 10,000 grievances. But the bearded barbarian youths are excellent horsemen. They bend their bows and shoot flying birds far and near. Now the geese of the frontier are afraid of people. How can I have my heart heard from these ends of the earth? An official during the reign of Han Wu Di, Su Wu, that's 140 to 86 BC, Su Wu was sent as an envoy to the Huns and was held prisoner by them. When the Khan reported to a later Chinese envoy that Su had died in his keeping, he was told that the Han emperor had received a message from Su carried by a goose. Seated on a fine rug under a canopy, Wen Qi bites her finger to draw blood. But will she be able to find a winged messenger? And having found one, will it get through to her homeland? The thought is answered by the scene in the distance where two of the tribesmen engage in a familiar nomad skill, shooting wildfowl while riding at a flying gallop. The tribe's banners, for a change, are unfurled, perhaps indicating that this is a settled campsite. And there it is. They're out hunting. There are the geese. And I think we'll pause here for the first half of this story and resume with chapter 10